Hello, and welcome to the monthly Paid Search Association webinar. Today we have Greg Finn with us, and I am super excited. You're going to learn all about PMax. Greg is an owner at Cypress North, also been doing Google Ads as long as I have pretty much, and also runs Marketing O'Clock, the podcast that I say is my therapy every week. I am really, really excited about this, and I'm going to get started right away. And we will have Q&A at the end. So put your questions in the chat, and, Higman, you can yell in there if you want.
All right. Yeah. Higman yells, let me know. But yeah, I've been doing PPC since before Google Ads. So I remember the old Ad Center days, all the Yahoo stuff. And I would just say in general, most people think of me as being sort of like anti-Google. I feel like I've come around a lot on things like, for example, the name of this slides today is PMaxxing, a different way to think about PMax and shopping. And I think one problem that we have with Google and Google Ads is a lot of times when they launch something, it kind of sucks. And then it takes a little bit of time, reiterations and improvements, and then things become good. And we live in a world today where everything is looks maxing, whatever maxing. And so I want to talk about PMaxxing and a different way to think about PMax and shopping specifically. So we could talk in Q&A, anything shopping, non-shopping, but I think PMax and shopping is sort of like a really interesting beast. So I wanted to talk about that today and uncover some ways that we're using it, that we're seeing success. And then even just a little bit of a look as to, why PMax is so good now and why it really can be used harmoniously with standard shopping. Okay, so I need to get this off my chest. And if you've listened to Marketing Clock, you've probably heard me say this a billion times, but PMax is a fundamentally flawed product, the way most people use it. And what do I mean by that? What do you think of when you think of PMax? You probably think it can drive conversions across all of the Google properties out there, right? And a good way to think about it, that I like to, is it's like a Swiss Army knife. And you've got some Gmail in there, you've got display, discover, YouTube Shorts, shopping, and search. If anybody owns a Swiss Army knife, you probably know it's very good in like emergency situations, but like it's a pretty bad knife. Like I am not going to go out trying to live off the land with a Swiss Army knife. Like, no thanks. I'm going to go get a bushcraft knife or something like that. And I think when you look at all these things, like really, what do you think is going to have the best return? And if my life was on the line and I had to guess a few different things, I probably guess those two in the middle and to the left, Google Shopping and Google Search, right? And I think when we use PMax, when we have targets, I don't think it's fair to some of these other options out there, right? Like I don't think Discover can keep up with the ROAS that shopping can't, typically. I don't think that YouTube Shorts can keep up with the ROAS that we get with search. So that's why I think it's fundamentally flawed. And I think if you're using PMax to be this one size fits all, hey, we're across the board with everything is cooking, we're good, we've got, visibility everywhere, I think you're probably wrong. And this is, to me, the way that Google sort of marketed, at least when it came out, right? But the minute you put a target in there, you're going to be optimizing towards that magnifying glass and towards that price tag for the most part for shopping. Because we just know that like Gmail can't keep up with the ROAS, and you have a target in there, and PMax is going to have to do what it can to hit that target. And then by proxy, the majority of money is going to go towards shopping, and you're going to get some search, and then you're going to have very, very, very little coverage on things like Discover, YouTube, Gmail, and the display network. So not all placements perform at the same level, right? So it was built to be this all-in-one campaign type. And when you hop in, you might see something like this in your PMax account when you look at the channel report. And in this case, we can see that out of $21,000, 20,886 dollars went to search. This one doesn't have shopping in there, but I think this is just a good example where we launched PMax. They're like, yep, we got everything covered. We are barely getting any kind of coverage, even on YouTube for this example, right? We got 31 clicks compared to 81,000. So is this an all-in-one campaign type? I beg to differ if we think this is an all-in-one campaign type and it's doing everything for us, right? The minute we put that target in, it's going to go rely on these different channels. And especially in the shopping side of things, which we'll see down the road here, shopping and search just perform better for most people. So I think most people ask PMax to do too much, right? If I really wanted to have great visibility on, let's say, Gmail, I might say, let's run standard shopping campaigns, and then let's run a demand gen campaign with Gmail. And what that would allow us to do is to say, hey, we have a set budget now for Gmail. We have our set budget for shopping. We can still get that coverage there. We're not going to have 0 clicks like we saw on the last screen there, but we are going to be strategic, right? We're not going to put everything out there, but instead, let's un-PMaxify some things. And it's really the issue is when you look at the two different things, they're not the same, right? We spent $61 here compared to $21,000. So that is the one thing I want to really just like hammer home when we're talking about this is like, I really, truly don't think that PMax is an all-in-one campaign type. And I think you can do much better sort of building your own and choosing your own adventures with their own budget, with their own targets, because you can't set targets for, say, Gmail or display. And I think that would be an awesome feature down the road because, as you know, for most people, display may be underperforming, again, the search and shopping aspects of things. That would be a huge feature that I would love and kind of backtrack some of this. But right now, those things just cannot keep up. So I wanted to hammer that point home here. And here's just another example of one that's working good. And this is the problems that you can run into. If I say I do not have any YouTube campaigns because I'm just running PMax, right? I can look at this example here. And in this, we can see our conversion value over cost or return on ad spend for YouTube is a 4.97. But we've only spent under $2,000 compared to almost $300,000 on Google search, right? PMax doesn't do a great job optimizing for where you need to go. And I'd say in this case, if I set, and we have YouTube campaigns, this is like a sale campaign, a different one. But if I had said, hey, guess what? We are running across the board, we're running across YouTube and everything is great, I would be wrong. Because according to this data and this fantastic channel report that we have now, I should see, look, YouTube needs more budget. And right now, PMax is not delivering enough budget there, and we have a 5x return. So it goes both ways, but for the and I want to have an example showing where, you know, search and shopping aren't like dominating, but it can be YouTube. And again, that's one of the things we're going to get to is like, how can we use some of this data and how can we build better instead of just resulting on, let's set one PMax up and let's be done with that. Okay. So we can use all of our data from PMax to make better decisions with our campaigns. As you just saw, that example looked at what the ROAS is. Hey, we need to invest more in shopping, in YouTube in that case. And PMax is not delivering enough to YouTube because it's going all towards search. So with PMax, I think a lot of times it can be sort of like quick fixes. It can be for very specific things. We're going to get to it at the end. But one of the best things is it can be a research tool to help you on your way to be better than just PMax. Because everybody listening here now is better than just an out-of-the-box PMax setup. All right. The good news, like I said, I might have been the worst advocate for PMax ever. I made stickers. I don't know if they're on my computer here. I called it PMin. I thought it was the worst campaign type ever created when Google launched this thing. And now I think there is a great use for PMax, even though it's not my like go-to for something like shopping. But the way that I like looking at campaigns or even bid types or anything within Google Ads is almost positive, right? Like I look at those things, everything is like a tool, and that's why we're going to see some more Swiss Army knife things here. But if I take a screwdriver and I try to take that and hammer a nail in, you're going to think the screwdriver sucks, but that's not what it's made for. You know what I mean? So like we need to maybe rethink what PMax is made for. And I think that might change your perception on things. Okay. So good news, Ginny, we trust. We've had lots of asks for things and we've gotten lots and lots and lots of updates from there. So now we really have this like multi-tool with amazing different things. And when it came out, it had that rusty file and a knife and those screwdriver things that never really work. Now we've got everything that we could want in PMax. So we've got brand guidelines, campaign level audience exclusions, demographic controls, final URL expansion assets reporting, new customer acquisition, campaign level negative keywords, device controls, channel performance reporting, search terms, and so much more that even launched this week or last week, one of the weeks, but definitely here in March. The problem is not all of the insight that we get is actionable. Even that channel report that we sort of started off on, we get that report, but we can't exclude any of the channels. We can't go through and bid adjust down or say, you know what, we want to say that we're going to relax the target on YouTube because we know it can't keep up and we want to filter and drive more that way. We can't do that, right? But we can take it and look for the insights inside of it and build our own things. We also now have negatives, which is awesome. We can use negative keywords, but we can't like put a certain keyword in and say to go for it, right? And then there are some items that we can really like action on. We've had ads with products is what it's called in the report. And now we have ads with video. And you might think, well, why would I ever need video? Why would I need to look at that? I don't have video. Oh, you got video. If you're in PMax, you got video and you should look at that report because PMax is making video for you. So again, that could be something where you're like, look, I'm running a lot of video. It seems like it's doing okay. I don't have any video in here. It's using them. Google is making an MS Paint version of my ad. Maybe I should invest in video. So life is better with PMax. So let's optimize, right? And I want to go through a couple of the newer features, right? Like there's a lot going on. And I think that's the biggest thing is a lot of times when we're looking at like where the wind is blowing is like, what is Google investing in? What is happening, right? And now we can see search term reporting, which is absolutely huge. One note on this, I feel like with Broad Match and with PMax, maybe even AI Max as well, we treat it like it's phrase match or exact match. And we really, really shouldn't. The key with negative keywords on Broad Match, on PMax, on any of those, they don't just go off of what the query was, right? It can look at past searches. It can look at your landing page. But the biggest thing to me is like the past queries. The person's past searches is so important, right? So when we use negative keywords, in my opinion, you should use them as little as possible. And I know some people are rolling their eyes right now, but you don't know why that was triggered. And maybe the previous query was something that would be really valuable to you and you can get it at a cheaper price here. Now, if you have no-fly terms, put those in. And what I mean by no-fly terms is something like, let's say I sell all new products, used products, Facebook Marketplace, all those things that if somebody is like has that intent of use and that intent is a no-fly term, maybe it's free, right? Something that should be on that list, negative those out. But don't treat this like it's phrased and exact. And I think you'll see more success with PMax if you're not in that query report every day, negativing everything out under the sun. Another thing that we have is device breakdown. And we can now segment by device where we couldn't at the beginning. And this is a huge deal. So with your device reporting, you should see how PMax is working. See what devices are performing the best for you. And here's an example where we have something where mobile phones has the highest conversion value over our cost or ROAS, right? And we can see that it's actually doing about $2 better. The conversion rate isn't there, but the clicks are so much cheaper that we're able to drive higher value here. So again, is this like actionable? Sort of yes and no. If this was the case for me, I might say, look, and we're going to get into one of the fundamental flaws of PMax is the asset groups really have no targeting options. I might look at this and say, I love how much is going into mobile. If, say, my target ROAS is like a 15, these are very high. This is like a super, super awesome client. But I might say, hey, let's take PMax and let's make a mobile PMax. And then let's make a desktop PMax. And we know that we might need to raise those targets up a little bit more on computers. But we can look at the data that we've got and see that we've got a good sample size here. And we might want to do something more. Or maybe we say, hey, we only have that $75,000. If there's more in mobile phones, let's put more towards that. And for every one of those extra $22,000 we have to spend, we're going to get $2,000 back for our clients. Additionally, here is another one where we can look at our cost per conversions here. And this is substantially better for computers, right? So it doesn't mean everything is one way. And I sometimes people look at it and be like, oh, we'll just go mobile. I'm just going to go mobile. It's like, no, you need to look at the data. The data is different for every client and you need to use your brains. But in this case, we are doing substantially better for conversions from our computers, our desktop. So when we look at this, right, and this is one we inherited, said, let's stop spending on mobile here and let's put that spend towards computers. Let's segment and separate the two and be on our way. Okay, so I would say the pro tip here, you can do some bit of just try some of this stuff. I personally just like complete segmentation by campaigns, and that's my recommendation, is if you have anything that you see something that is completely different user behavior, whether it be shopping, standard shopping, whether it be search even, like I don't like bid adjustments personally, I like control. And you still have the ability to say, let me make a campaign that's shopping, that's desktop, let me make a campaign that's shopping mobile, and then you get to set where the budget goes for each of those. And whichever one's performing worse, just set higher targets for those. And your goal is to try to get the thing that's worse, decrease the volume, but increase the efficiency. And that's sort of like always how we think about things, especially on the shopping side of things. I mean, it works with conversions too. I like to say a lot of times it's like a teeter-totter or a seesaw. You have volume. When volume's up, efficiency is generally down. When volume's down, efficiency is generally up. And it's really trying to find that sweet spot, that efficient frontier between the two that is going to drive the most value for you at the cost that really works as well. Okay, we also have asset reporting optimization, which is wild that we didn't have this when it came out, but we do now, so I should not complain. This is something that you should be looking at, especially with PMax. PMax can be a great testing tool just to put different creative out there. And then especially if you've got maybe a smaller segment of products or something that's maybe it's something that's like on sale, you could take that and say, look, this is our spring sale. This piece of creative really resonated well. Let's take that and move it into our normal campaigns. And again, finding value within PMax reports is something that we're big on. So here's an example where, when we took over, there was an automatically created headline here that had a very, very low ROAS, right? So first thing you do, take it, get rid of it, right? We're looking at headlines in general, and we're usually right around about a 20 ROAS for this. This one came with this automatically created one, and you can see this one stinks. This stinks real bad. So like, let's jump in there and remove that. Same thing with image assets, same thing with descriptions. Like, go through there and see what's resonating with the audience. It's huge. So again, treat it like a search display campaigns with those assets. We're always looking at testing different ads, different headlines, subscriptions, things like that. So yeah, it can be super helpful. And then you can take some of those things that work and then take it and add it to your display campaigns or your whatever campaigns that you want. I mean, headlines can go anywhere and are basically everything now, site links, everything. We kind of touched on just this to start, but channel reporting is super amazing to see where your dollars are going with PMax. This is a cool looking tool. I don't use it because you can't see anything with it. Really jumping into that channel reporting, you can see all the data here where it's like, oh, here is our display for this one specifically. Like, we're getting a crazy return on it. It's probably all remarketing, but it's nice to know that we should be investing more in remarketing and display for this. So channel reporting, like I mentioned before, there's not much you can do with it, but it's information, it's insights, it can make you better. That's why we're all here today, is to get better. So definitely look at that. And then I would also say, like, PMax is sort of a holding cell, right? Like, I look at this and I say, I got to get display out of here. I got to spend more on display. I need to give it its own budget. Search is taking the lion's share here, and I want to make sure we are invested enough within display. And then YouTube, for example, like, isn't keeping up with search, as barely anything can. For this example, like, search is great. Maybe we want to go through, look at where some of the value is coming from, invest more in the search side of things. And maybe YouTube isn't a great option for this. So maybe we cut down on our PMax budget overall, add more into that newly created display campaign, have a separate search campaign with all the winners, which we do in this, and then load that full with our like top stars that we're seeing from a value standpoint, and make sure that we're really being aggressive here. Because that's the thing I don't like about PMax, is you can't really like be super aggressive on things. Like, if you can make a search campaign and you know what the terms are, or you have a shopping campaign and you know these are best sellers, you can have a really, really low target return on ad spend. You can have and you can really like look and see your search impression share on these different terms that are happening. And you can like optimize towards that. But with PMax, the thing that gets me is there's not a ton of like really succinct ways to target based off of some of this data. So again, you're hearing me say this a lot. Take the data and be better with it in standard kind of campaigns or demand gen type campaigns. Okay. Again, directional use on which properties can work for you and your products, and then build them out differently based on what you're seeing. You can even set up a PMax campaign, run it, and if you see something just isn't working at all, let's say YouTube isn't working at all. If your PMax, your video, so what can you do? Build your own Frankenstein hybrid PMax without video, right? Set up your shopping campaigns, set up your search campaigns, set up demand gen, set up within demand gen. I like breaking it up by ad group, and we can have Gmail because you can set a target there. You can have YouTube in there if we felt like doing some YouTube. You can have Discover. You can have Gmail in there. And then, or let's say we remove the YouTube and there's none in there. Now we have this Frankenstein PMax that completely removed video, and we're hitting all the same elements. Yes, it might be 2 to 3 campaigns depending on it's e-commerce or not, but you are then building your own PMax based off of what works, if that makes sense. And then the segmenting also now shows video and product type. Let's see if I got it here. So for a while now, we've been able to see the product data, and this is really for shopping, right? And if you look typically at what PMax optimizes for, it generally optimizes for ads with product data, I would say. I had to scour long and hard to find one that was like same sample size here. But it's important to know, like in this case, I'm looking at this cost, right? And if $2,500 is a big deal to me, I would be pretty disappointed in my 6 ROAS here. I'd be pretty disappointed because the majority of the spend went to just standard search ads without a product feed, non-shopping ads, no PLAs. And the conversion value of those is 2.53. So for every dollar spending, we're getting $2.53 back. I could be getting $11 back. So this is huge, right? And this is one of the things I don't love about PMax. If PMax was doing its job, PMax would not be segmenting spends like this. The spends would be skewed 80-20 towards product data, but they're not. It's skewed 60-40 towards search. So look and see what's working for you. For the most part, if you're in shopping, those shopping ads do work fantastic. But there can be cases, everything's different. Look at your data. But this can be one where you might say, look, I'm done with PMax. And that's what I'd say. With this one, I'd say I'm done. I'm just going to do shopping ads. Shopping ads work well. And I know it's search. And then with the product data, I know it's shopping. So I'm going to set up and build out a pro style standard shopping campaign. And then there's still ways that you can layer on. And that's one thing I like doing now with PMax. We'll get to it, but kind of like using it as like a layering tool that you can use. All right. We also now have, as of this week or last week, the 16th, video segmentation options. So with this, we can jump in and see how many purchases were made. We can see they do the stupid thing where you can't see the ROAS. It drives me crazy where it's like, I know you know this number. I know I can make this number using math, but I don't want to. Just please do your job and rant. But you can still use this and come up with your own return on ad spend. Obviously, we can see this is roughly a 3. The ads using video here for this client, we spent about $300,000, got about $900,000 back. Whereas ads that were not using video spent $3,000 and only got $2,200 back. So this is a negative return on ad spend. Now, again, many people are saying right now in the comments, probably you that I'm talking to right now, why I don't care, I don't have video. Like I said before, PMax has video. And I think this is like a surprising tool that they put out there, because if you do not upload video, PMax makes video for you. And I would assume that it sucks. That's just my assumption. So if you are running PMax and you don't have video, use this, go in, hop in. You have to hit the segment button right here. We're going to segment to products using with video or using video, ads using video. And that's where you can also do ads using products and just see how that's going. And then you're just going to have to do the mental math here because Google doesn't feel like it. But Google's the best at AI and generative things. Okay, so PMax tips, tricks, and hacks. And this is where I want to kind of dive in a little bit deeper into the way that we build campaigns, the way that I think about PMax. And then also whatever somebody says on the internet does not mean that it's the right way for you. Use these things as like guide rails or starting points or anything under the sun that will be helpful, but it does not mean this is what you should do. So that's my disclaimer here. There are some phenomenal things that we have with PMax now. We have brand exclusions, right? And I think going through and making sure your entire brand is excluded is a huge deal. With that said, you can now also exclude competitors. You can use negative keywords to block those competitors. Well, I recommend both. Like, just do everything that you think will not convert for you. Remove those if you want. And then there's new customer acquisition, which is a really cool feature for shopping, for anybody that is probably not as much on the B2B side of shopping, but as long as those emails match up is a huge deal. We used a bunch of MMMs, and new customer acquisition does work better than just standard shopping or standard PMax. Like, we've seen the data, and new customer acquisition is a huge tool. If that is a goal for you, is driving new customers. And then obviously there's like retention as well that you can do, but a few must-haves that make PMax really appealing for some people. I don't know why the placement reporting is in here, but this is something else that you can now do at the account level. You can just say, look, I don't want 2-minute test in here. I know a lot of people are kind of like worried about where you're going to show, worried about, is it just all going to be remarketing? No. And then I will just say, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but PMax is coming out with something even more so. There's some betas, at least, or some things out there that some accounts have that is like the complete opposite of remarketing, like no awareness type stuff. But use your placement reporting as well. It's a huge way to make sure you're not getting junk, because there's a lot of junk out there. And then I know this is supposed to be about shopping, but the number one thing to do if you're using PMax and lead gen is make your form hard, difficult, put in like an Easter egg in there where you set one field up to something nobody would ever choose. And if that field is moved to the proper field, so say I'm at Cypress North, and what are you interested in? It might be like digital marketing services, data, websites, something like that. If I put one in there and it's just, just want to connect or something like that, then I won't count that as a lead. You have to put friction in there. And then the best possible ways, if you have a CRM, or obviously if you have an e-commerce platform, making sure like you have sales or actual like marketing qualified leads, sales qualified leads, things like that. Okay, so one of the morals of the story is use the channel report and stop using those rusty, gross little mini scissors that you have to hit video on PMax, and make your own shiny shears for YouTube on demand gen. And I think people expect PMax to be better than it is, and it's not. In that example where we saw YouTube was thriving and driving a 5x ROAS, I would be mad if we didn't have YouTube campaigns, right? So just because it's working doesn't mean it's the final form, right? And I've hopefully said that enough that y'all get that by now. But take the time to build things the right way so that your budgets are going towards the channels you want, because that is the fundamental flaw with PMax. Another thing, this should be PMax on the left. PMax is a rusty knife. I messed that up. PMax is the rusty knife. Standard shopping is a chainsaw. I love standard shopping. So apologies for that. But if you are maybe like a small e-commerce site out there, all your products are roughly the same. Maybe you've got a bundle of products or something like a variety pack. But if everything's roughly the same, PMax could be okay for you. I think where PMax really fails is where people try to upload their entire catalog and essentially use it when you have maybe your Nike and you sell, $250 Jordans, and then you also sell, a $10 pair of socks, right? I think you should still group your PMax campaigns like you would with standard shopping. I know there's limitations of like 100 PMax campaigns, but you should still group them in like-minded ways we're going to get to in a second of what the biggest pain point to me of PMax is, but really kind of like group those things if you are going to use PMax as like your main shopping vehicle. The nice thing is, as of like 2024, I think October-ish, PMax now can work with standard shopping. So you can use PMax to like maybe like layer things in. And that's what I mean by that is maybe we have our budgets for all of our different categories and we have shopping campaigns built out for each product category that we have. And in there we have ad groups with subcategories. And each one of those has a budget, like a daily budget. If it hits that daily budget, your ads are going to be off, right? Or 2x the daily budget, whatever. You could still say, I'm going to make a catch-all PMax campaign. It's going to go across everything. And if our standard shopping has a target return on ad spend ask of 300, maybe our catch-all is 600. And we're probably not going to get a lot of volume in that 600 PMax catch-all, but we will be there and we can layer that on top and kind of cast a big wide net and try to get some really cheap conversions coming in. Another big problem, the biggest problem with PMax is asset groups. You can't set bids there. So if I set up a PMax campaign, I can't say, oh, this asset group should be having this target, or the asset group 2 should be having Z target. That is one of the best things with standard shopping, in my opinion, is that you can have your campaign, and then at the ad group level, maybe again, I'm Nike, and I have a campaign that's about running shoes, and I have an ad group that's Air Max. I have another one on Pegasus. I have another one there. And we can see how well they're performing, and then we can adjust up or down to try to get the return we want. We can't do that with asset groups, and that is a huge, huge flaw. And for most cases, I prefer standard shopping just due to the ad group flexibility. It is just so, so powerful, especially if you have big catalogs. All right, next here, I know I got a minute or two left. I like using PMax the wrong way. And I know this is supposed to be more about shopping, but with search, I don't think you can have too many PMax campaigns with like a super, super, super aggressive targets. Like I'll do one that's off of search themes, one that's off of signals, one that's off of like, why not set up more if they're working? And especially on the search side, I think a lot of times you can get much lower CPCs than you would with standard search. But like, even if you're like, I'm a standard shopping person through and through, that's my jam. You can maybe use PMax for sales or one-offs, clearance, something like that, and see how that works, right? And especially if those are higher asks than your shopping, the determining factor is that ask, right? So it's going to hit standard shopping first and then kind of default to PMax. And that's the same as number 2. Kind of just talked about that a little bit, but you can have those catch-all campaigns, higher targets. Maybe you can set up something and say, I want to kind of have some coverage in off hours. Most of our sales come 8 to 5, and I want to have a PMax that kind of wraps around that and just has some visibility. Use PMax for that too. That's great. And then new customer acquisition. Again, I think PMax is going to get even better at this moving forward. Where just remember I said that. I think that's coming down the road. Okay, I'm right on time, Sarah. That was it. I know there's probably a billion questions, and I would be very happy to answer them all for you.
Awesome. So the first one I'm going to start with is the cannibalization that happens. I can tell you, I just let it happen. So I'd love to know your perspective. It's just a necessary evil is how I look at it.
Yeah, and I think it's different for shopping, where it's really like much more bid based, where it's if you have a target return on ad spend ask of 2, and then you have target ask of 4, like 2 is going to take precedence, and it's pretty easy. Yeah. So I think shopping is pretty easy there. It is nice that you can have both, right? And then on the search side of things, this is where it's that super goofy. I wrote an entire post about on Search Engine Land. What is an identical match?
Yep.
I think that's a big thing too, is like hypothetically, as long as your campaigns have budget and you have that keyword in search, a search campaign in there, and it's fully funded, it's eligible. That exact match term should make it from the search campaign, not the PMax campaign. But there is going to be cannibalization for sure. It just happens. I think the big thing is if you can live with the results, I can live with the cannibalization.
Yeah, no, that's my perspective too. And I think you just hit on it. Like the auction dynamics is essentially what happens. And I think some people don't necessarily realize what you just articulated there with the ROAS changes. Before you complain about it, look at the ROAS of each campaign that you're accusing of cannibalizing. So with that, I really also want to highlight, I did love your approach on the negatives. I will admit, I'm probably not as heavy-handed on it. So now I'm going to go back and do that and feel like a genius. What do you think of a branded and a non-branded PMax? Because I've been seeing that in a couple of my audits recently.
I hate it.
Oh, fill me in. Talk to me about this.
I don't know why. I mean, I think if you're talking about search, for sure, like, yep. I just do not trust PMax. I would want to know, because generally there's one or maybe two terms that make up 95% of the volume, right?
Yep.
And then there's sort of like the phrase matchy stuff. Maybe there's 15% of that. I just don't think you have the ability to be as precise as you want with PMax. You don't have keywords, right? Mm-hmm. So I would 100% not use PMax as the first go-to for it. I would say set up a search campaign, use that because you have so many more options with a search campaign, right? You can, if you feel like manually bidding, you can manually bid, but you'll be able to like really have much more control over like what your impression share is, what your click share is for that one specific term, right? Even put it in its own ad group, right? Say, here are my branded terms. Here's keyword 1, here's keyword 2, single SKAGs, single keyword ad groups. Like there's no use for them, but maybe in branded, just thinking off the top of my head here, if I've got something that drives the majority of things and having a high click share, having a high impression share, making sure I'm not losing it due to budget, say that your company name has a keyword in it, right? Yep. Like I have shoes in my name. Guess what? I'm gonna start showing up for shoes or sneakers or something like that. It's a necessary evil for some people, and I don't think you have enough granularity with PMax. But that being said, I would have those main search campaign with those ad groups that are terms that are super valuable. Good. Set a PMax up with a brand inclusion and do it that way if you can.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I know we talked about this ahead of time. It wasn't in the presentation, but I'm really excited to hear your take. The AI Max versus PMax. And then also I would say like taking what you know about Performance Max, have you been able to be, I guess, better with a new product like AI Max as a result of your trial and how much you've been pushing the limits with your PMax?
So first off, mini rant here. Who came out with AI Max and it's like, it's our keywordless technology. It's like, bro, I don't know if you know what broad match was, but you can match to previous queries. I don't know why you're making this seem like it's brand new news. Broad match does not need to have the term in there. It can look at previous search history. So broad match was your first keywordless technology. So I never understood that part of it. And if you're using broad match, I feel like it's very similar to AI Max. Like it is. It's the same, almost the same thing. Like if you have broad match, you barely spend an AI Max, right? AI Max really only spends when you have like phrase and exact in there. Mm-hmm. So from that case, I don't think it's like the first one. Secondly, I think anything where you have less clarity and you get used to it is sad, but also like helpful because it's like, this is the world I'm in. You know what I mean? I don't know if it necessarily makes anybody better from it, but you know, there's probably lots of things that translate, like, you know, the way you think about negative keywords and maybe you're not as aggressive on some of those things. You know, that could be helpful, but I don't think like PMax, because at least with AI Max, you can say, I want you to AI Max this exact match phrase or term here, you know, and you still have more control with AI Max.
Awesome. So this one came directly from the chat. So are brand exclusions in PMax combined with exact match brand keywords in your search campaigns helpful for minimizing the brand cannibalization?
Okay. I would just say here at our company, we have one person, Callie, that just makes TikToks talking about how bad brand is. Like brand is like it is like a cuss word, branded spend. Our goal is always to like spend the minimal amount on branded terms. So if we have a campaign, the majority of campaigns we have, everything has brand negatives out. If we can put exclusions in there, we use exclusions, but everything is essentially as non-brand as possible. And then we do have campaigns. We try to even make our own shopping branded campaigns. It's impossible to do so because it matches off of product data.
Mm-hmm.
But for those specifically, we have a higher ask than our standard shopping campaigns. Our standard shopping have all the brand negatives out, right? And then we let brand live in this other shopping with a much higher ask. And for the most part, I'd say 90% of the spend is on brand in those shopping ones. But to answer that question, you should never, ever, ever, ever have brand mixed with non-brand in a campaign. If you have campaigns, it should be clear as day. This is a branded campaign and this is a non-brand campaign. And your goal with the branded campaign is to sigh in a giant frustrating sigh. We have to have these brand campaigns because the competitors are showing up here. But then to try to figure out how to get the most by spending the less. So yes, that's an option to do and say can we do inclusions? Yes, but I would say that's PMax brand. And then when we report, we barely ever report a brand. It's a different line item, a different page in reporting. We look at what is much more incremental in people not looking for us. And then we have our take a deep breath, namaste, here's the branded stuff.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's also insightful how aggressive you are against that. Interestingly, we have in chat, somebody asked again about that PMax, but you answered that, the brand and non-brand. But sort of as a sub thought on that, feed only brand.
Yeah, so it's still a workaround you can do. It's sort of like the old smart shopping flair. Mm-hmm. That is a definite option that you can do. If my biggest takeaway, Rizwan, is like, what are you getting with that you're not with shopping?
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do.
We've done it in the past. We tested it. We generally speaking, like, don't do a ton of it anymore. We also have many clients now with like really good video and things like that. But yes, I believe that you still can not upload any single asset other than a feed. If you put one headline in, you lose the ability to do it. But if you just have a feed and you don't put any single thing into a campaign that's PMax, it should be the majority of it shopping. Some of it will go to YouTube. I believe you'll get like a little teeny bit there, but won't be in search or anything like that. I've just seen it be less effective, honestly. And then it's like standard shopping is so darn good that I just love it.
Yeah, no, I've seen that as well. I challenge people to always say, why is this there, right? Before you add a campaign, what is your reason for adding it? And you'd be surprised even today how that's kind of stump people. So that very first question about the brand exclusions in PMax combined with the exact match, we have a little bit of clarity on that question. And so this is a non-profit industry perspective, no shipping. So I just want to clarify that as well.
Yeah, so you're a nonprofit industry. I'd say one thing that you've got there is probably, hopefully it's not as cutthroat, and hopefully people aren't coming for you, and hopefully you don't need to protect your brand as much, right? It's a little bit different when maybe you're like a Monday or a Asana or a ClickUp and everything is so valuable and you're trying to eat everybody's dinner. So I guess the question would be like, hey, do we need branding, right? We have clients that the name is company name, then product.com. And in that case, it's like, I'm sorry, but you have the term coffee mugs, your gregscoffeemugs.com. People are going to show up when they search for Greg's space coffee space mugs. You're going to get discount mug. You're going to get everybody in there. So I don't think everybody needs branded. We have one client where we've cut brand down to under 1%, which is huge. They were like when we took it over, the majority of all their conversions and everything came from branded. If you cut branded down, you'll see your organic numbers go up. So yes, the one thing of note too is if you cut down on branded, all of your in-platform metrics are going to look way worse, right? Because it's free money for the taking. It's a scummy way that a lot of agencies do business, or probably in-house people too. But ideally, you're spending as little as possible on the branded side of things. But I wouldn't use PMax for it. I would be very specific with it. I'd figure out what that main term is, get that exact match in there, and then, probably negative out all the things that you would want for no fly zone, like login, careers,
yeah, right.
Things like that just really aren't ever going to convert. But it's just a sad thing. I hate the fact that we have to spend money on branded. That's what keeps me up at night.
So this one is a really interesting one. Kaylee is saying she's hesitant on standard shopping for the sunset. So I would love your take. I won't read the entire thing, but do you worry about this getting reliant on an old technology?
I don't think it's old technology. I think it's good technology. But Kaylee, I am also anxious as well. I think one thing that's good to know is like, a lot of times I'll say it's reality on reality's terms, and is standard shopping going to be there forever? No. Is PMax in its current form able to replace it? No, it's not. And then what else do I know for sure right now? Standard shopping is awesome. It's great. You have so much more ability, even the ad group level, if you've got big catalogs, is huge. So yes, I know that at some point the strategy will not work, but the reality is I'm giving a presentation in 2026, and that's what I do, and that's what I'm going to do until the wheels fall off of it. And yeah, I might be gritting my teeth alongside you, Kaylee.
And then another comment here was just stating PMax automatically conquests on other brands without proper guardrails, and nobody applies them.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's going to the nice thing too now is you have audience exclusion. So if you're like, oh, PMax is giving me all of just remarketing, good. Get rid of your people that have been past purchasers. Get rid of anybody that's been a website visitor. Again, I do feel like PMax is going to make major steps in this space to make it so that it is geared towards incrementality. Wait, what was the question again? The question was, bidding on other competitors.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So then again, brand exclusions, right? Like you can exclude all of your competitors' brands. If there's a competitor out there that does not fit you at all in price, exclude it for sure. In general, exclude every customer if it's just like a general term. And then I would have one that is customer driven, or like a conquesting campaign, right? And hey, let's go. Somebody's looking for Asana, and on Monday, maybe we'll go that route and see what we can do. But yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people just set it up, launch it, and think that they're going across everything across the board, hitting all those different networks. They're not. They think that they're going out and hitting those exact search themes that they're looking for. They're not. That's just a start, and then it goes and does whatever it wants. I totally agree with that comment.
So a couple people are just, in here saying thank you, that they agree for the answer. So I do want to make sure that we do say that. You've been really, really helpful. So I've been waiting for my chance to kind of stump you up on questions. So I'm going to ask one. Okay, good. So I am going to pick a little bit on Jeannie here and say that there was a comment that was made that if Google feels like something's going to convert, but you're not directly bidding on, or you're directly bidding on, they will serve a different product altogether. So I believe Google is just sort of predicting. Do you think any of the segmentation that you talked about early on could just be a comfort blanket? What's your thought on how much we really can control, and they're not just letting us do it and not ignoring it?
Well, I mean, that's you could do it in PMax as well, right? It's listing groups in PMax and product groups. I don't know why it's different.
Correct.
No idea why. But again, if you have a campaign and it's like it's your top sellers, right?
Yep.
And you have that, and then let's say we pull in, ad group that's desktops, laptops, things
Yep.
like that. Those products that are in there and shopping are only going to show that are in that ad group. So could it show something different in the laptops? For sure, it could. But it's got to be within the laptops, and it's got to have whatever that custom label is associated with bestsellers. So, or however you configure it, maybe you have different feeds or whatever. So I do think that could be possible that it might go to a different product, but it's on you to set the products that are in the ad group with the budget at the campaign, So I think that's the nice thing with standard shopping is you still have all that control down to the ad group level where you can set those targets. So if you see something that is spending money and not converting, good. Like maybe that's a different strategy you can have. You can have, we have a client where we have like high converters, certain number sold. We call them like a good, middle, bad kind of thing. And you can just change them, right? And it's like, if it's to show, it will have to be that product that is in that ad group. So I do think that there is still that control that you have. And obviously it's much, much easier with ad group targeting with standard shopping.
Yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. And then I guess I'll ask, with the asset level data that we see, do you feel like we have enough data to be able to make legitimate creative decisions? So I know that you were able to pick that headline that, I loved your word, whatever you said, terrible headline. But the vast majority of accounts, it's just not aggregating to that level.
Yeah, I mean, it's all sample size based. You know what I mean? I do think that the thing that is almost nice, and I don't know if Anthony Higgins here, but he's gonna roll his eyes, is like with people, you have to use different creative, right? And it's almost like a kick in the butt to be like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna pay somebody maybe even $1,500 to make some stop motion video and we'll see how it works. So I think in general, like it's all based on volume. You know what I mean? Whenever everybody asks like, when is this gonna be done? Like how long do we want for test? It's really like how much data do we have kind of thing. So like if you have enough data, it's like directionally helpful. The thing that you don't really see is, hey, this image worked really good, but it was all on search and then it did bad in display. Like, we don't have that. But again, it's directionally helpful. And to me, I'm not in the nitty gritty. Like if you see something really good or really bad, it's like, that's what gets me excited. Is like, okay, that's something we can trim. That's something we can take and be like, look, let's make more of this, or let's bring this into everything else out there.
Yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. So then I'll ask another, I'm going to pick the hard questions. So, you obviously are an amazing agency. So I take it you get clients that have been there, done that, hasn't worked, they come to you. So you inherit an account and it has, maybe multiple PMax, multiple shopping. It's just, I'm going to call it a ball of yarn. Do you sort of have a approach before you start just like chopping off the campaigns, or is it just you follow that data type?
So a lot of people, and maybe we did this back in the day, a lot of people go through and start doing what looks good in platform, right? And that's like the easy way to do stuff.
Correct.
Is to hop in and do that. When we take something, we have a new one this week, and the number one thing that you can do as a marketer is in PPC in general, and you will never not have a job, is really distill down what matters to the business, right? You might see something is looking bad, but if you can determine it's driving new customers at a better rate than your remarketing campaign, and the only thing of value to them is new customers, and that's their lifeblood, like, let's do that. And I would say the first thing that we always have is like, are conversions correct? Do you take phone calls? Are we tracking those? Chats, form fills? Like, how is everything coming in? Obviously, we have the web orders, but like, what's the full picture? Ideally, you get to some sort of value-based bidding, or ideally, you'd be able to pass conversion value back. But number one place to start is actually understand their business. We have a client that has no problem selling things. They want us to sell things that are hard to sell. Our ROAS is going to go down. Client happiness is going to go up.
Right.
ongoing client happiness every day of the week.
Yep. Totally. Absolutely makes sense. And with that, is there one place, like if you want people to go there to find you, Cypress North? I'd love a nice little wrap up.
Yeah, I think we've got a great blog on Cypress North, but my baby is Marketing and Clock every week on Monday. You get to hear more of this. If you like this, you stay to the end. God bless you, thoughts and prayers, but we do this every single Monday. And then I also have a daily show with Barry Schwartz over on the Rusty Brick channel, Morty Oberstein, and Anu, who's fantastic. And Anu and I cover a lot of the paid news. So if you're looking for daily news, we do that Monday through Thursday. And then weekly news with all the sass, puns, and everything that we don't want is over on Marketing Clock on Mondays every single week.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here. And thank you everyone for joining our webinar today.
Thanks so much. Thanks for the questions.
Thanks.